Sit down. I mean it. Stop moving for a moment. Put the phone down if you need to. Pull the car over if you are driving. Stand still in that kitchen. Sit on the edge of that bed and breathe. Because this is not the kind of word you receive while rushing past your own pain. This is not background noise. This is not something to half listen to while your mind is still trying to solve everything that broke. God is saying something to you today, and He is not speaking casually. If this message found you while you were exhausted, if it found you in your car with tears you wiped away before anybody could see them, if it found you in the kitchen staring at nothing because your mind has been too full, if it found you in your bedroom at midnight wondering how much more your heart can carry, that was not an accident. That was not random. Heaven is interrupting fear with clarity. Heaven has stepped into the room before your thoughts could drag you into another spiral. Because I know what you have been asking. You may not have said it out loud, but it has been moving through your chest. Why is everything trembling at the same time? Why does the thing that used to feel safe now feel uncertain? Why do the places you leaned on suddenly feel weak? Why does it seem like your peace, your relationships, your money, your confidence, your direction, and even your sense of self are all being touched at once? Listen to me carefully. The shaking is not proof that God left. The shaking is the first sign that He has come close enough to rebuild. You thought the trembling meant abandonment. It does not. You thought the pressure meant punishment. It does not. You thought God was exposing you to shame, stripping you in front of people, letting life humiliate you, letting enemies watch you fall. No, that is fear talking. That is trauma, interpreting the hand of God through the memory of people who mishandled you. God is not destroying you. God is not playing with your life. God is not standing far away while your foundation cracks. He is kneeling down at the deepest place, touching what you could not reach, restoring what you learned to survive on even when it was unstable. And I need you to hear this before fear misreads the season. Everything that shakes is not being taken. Some things shake because God is testing what can carry the weight of where He is taking you. Some things shake because the foundation underneath them was never healed. Some things shake because you built trust around pain, identity around survival, obedience around fear, relationships around abandonment, provision around panic, and calling around approval. And now God is saying, I love you too much to let your next season stand on a wounded foundation. Before this message is over, you are going to understand what God is rebuilding first. For some of you, it is trust, because you still believe God is good until His hands are hidden. For some of you, it is identity, because you have been answering to names heaven never gave you. For some of you, it is obedience, because delayed surrender has been draining your peace. For some of you, it is relationships, provision, or calling. But whatever foundation trembled, God is not finished there. He is starting there. So breathe. Do not run from this word. Do not scroll away because it touches the place you have been trying to protect. If you believe God can rebuild what life shook, like this video as an act of agreement. Subscribe if you need steady prophetic encouragement in this season, because you cannot keep feeding your spirit with fear and expect your foundation to stand strong. And stay until the end, because the final declaration is not for the polished part of you. It is for the part that almost gave up, the part that whispered, I cannot do this anymore, and still somehow made it here. God brought you to this moment to tell you one thing clearly. This is not collapse. This is restoration beginning at the foundation. And the part that hurt you most was not just that something changed. It was where it changed. Be honest. If the shaking had happened somewhere you were already suspicious of, you might have handled it differently. If the trembling had started in a place you already knew was weak, you might have said, I saw this coming. But this began where you felt safest. This touched the area you thought you could count on. This moved under the thing you had quietly told yourself would always be there. It was the relationship you leaned on. It was the job that gave you a name. It was the home that made you feel protected. It was the routine that kept your thoughts from racing. It was the role that made you feel needed. It was the person whose voice used to calm you. It was the income that helped you breathe. It was the ministry, the family system, the friendship, the plan, the familiar rhythm you built your days around. And then suddenly, the floor under it did not feel as solid as it used to feel. Listen, that is why this has felt so personal. Foundations are hidden. Nobody walks into a house and talks first about the concrete under the ground. They notice the paint, They notice the windows. They notice the furniture. They notice what is visible. But when the foundation shifts, the crack shows up in the wall. The door stops closing right. The floor starts sloping. Something visible begins to reveal something invisible. And that is what has been happening in you. People may only see the mood change. They may only see that you are quieter. They may only see that you do not answer the same way, laugh the same way, show up the same way, tolerate the same things the same way. But they do not know what shifted underneath. They do not know that God has touched a place so deep in you that even you are trying to understand it. They do not know that the crack they are commenting on is not the real issue. The real issue is the foundation God is exposing beneath it. And I know what you have been asking. God, why this area? Why now? Why did you let the one thing I counted on become uncertain? Why did you allow pressure to touch the place that helped me survive other pressure? Why did you let my safe place tremble when you knew I was already tired? You have been trying to make sense of it because you thought safety meant untouched. You thought if God loved you, He would protect that area from shaking. But sometimes love does not protect a weak foundation by pretending it is strong. Sometimes love reveals what cannot carry the next season before the next season arrives. This is not God being cruel. This is God being precise. He is not randomly shaking your life. He is putting His finger on the place that has been carrying too much weight without enough healing. He is showing you where fear has been disguised as wisdom, where control has been disguised as responsibility, where dependence has been disguised as loyalty, where exhaustion has been disguised as strength. And He is not showing it to shame you. He is showing it because hidden weakness cannot be healed while it stays hidden. The tremble is revelation. Say that to yourself. The tremble is revelation. It is God letting what was buried come into the light so it can be healed, reinforced, restored, and made ready. Because where He is taking you will require more weight than where you have been. The old structure may have helped you survive, but survival is not the same as stability. The old rhythm may have helped you function, but functioning is not the same as freedom. The old support may have helped you keep going, but keeping going is not the same as being whole. So if God allowed the safest place to shake, do not assume He is taking safety from you. He is teaching you where true safety has to be rebuilt. He is not just decorating your life above ground. He is not just changing the furniture, painting the walls, opening a new door, or giving you something pretty to post about. No, He is dealing with what carries the life beneath it. He is going under the surface. He is touching the foundation. And chosen one, that means this is deeper than a change in circumstances. This is restoration at the level of what has been holding you up. And this is where you have to stop calling it demolition just because it feels destructive. Listen to me. Everything that makes noise is not an attack. Everything that gets exposed is not being ruined. Everything that comes apart in your hands is not proof that God is finished with it. Sometimes what looks like collapse is construction, because God cannot build a lasting future on a cracked foundation and pretend love did not see the crack. That is the word you need to put over this season. Construction. Holy construction. Not rejection. Restoration. Not punishment. Preparation. Not abandonment. Architecture. Not the end. Excavation. God is not just tearing through your life because He has nothing better to do. He is not breaking what you love just to watch you panic. He is not taking a hammer to your peace because He enjoys your tears. No, He is doing what only a faithful builder does. He is refusing to let you live in a structure that looks stable from the outside but cannot survive the weight of what He promised. Because fresh paint can hide a crack for a while, but it cannot heal the wall. New furniture can make a room look different, but it cannot fix what is shifting underneath. You can hang pictures over the damage. You can smile over the fear. You can stay busy over the grief. You can keep saying, "I'm fine," while something beneath your life is begging for attention. But God sees under the paint. God sees under the smile. God sees under the routine. God sees under the performance. And when He loves you, He will not let decoration become a substitute for restoration. Some of you have been asking God for a new door, and God has been dealing with the foundation under the hallway. You have been asking for speed, and God has been insisting on strength. You have been asking for a blessing, and God has been asking, can the structure hold it? You wanted Him to send the opportunity, send the relationship, send the platform, send the money, send the answer, send the next thing. But God looked beneath the visible part of your life and said, not yet. Not because I do not love you, not because I forgot you, not because I am slow, because if I put weight on this right now, the blessing would crush what I am trying to heal. That delay was not always denial. That closed door was not always punishment. That separation was not always rejection. That silence was not always absence. Some of what you called God being slow was God being merciful. Some of what you called God withholding was God reinforcing. Some of what you called God taking too long was God refusing to let you move forward with a belief system that would not survive the blessing you kept praying for. You thought the door was the issue. God said, the foundation is the issue. You thought the person was the issue. God said, the pattern is the issue. You thought the money was the issue. God said, the panic is the issue. You thought the calling was the issue. God said, the identity carrying the calling is the issue. You thought if the circumstance changed, your life would finally feel steady. But God is going deeper than the circumstance. He is rebuilding the way you interpret Him while the circumstance is still shaking. And that is why this hurts in a different way. Because construction is noisy, construction is messy, construction interrupts the normal rhythm of the house. You cannot renovate a foundation quietly. You cannot repair what is underneath without disturbing what is above it. Dust gets everywhere. Things get moved. Rooms stop functioning the way they used to function. Areas get blocked off. You wake up to sounds you did not ask for, changes you did not schedule, inconvenience you did not plan for. And when nobody told you that you were living on a renovation site, it feels like something is wrong. But chosen one, God is not confused by the mess. You are confused because you thought you were in a collapse. Heaven knows you are in construction. You are looking at the dust and saying, what happened to my life? God is looking at the blueprint and saying, I am making room for what I promised. You are looking at the exposed places and feeling embarrassed. God is looking at them and saying, now we can finally heal what has been hidden. You are looking at what had to be removed and grieving the loss. God is looking at what had to be removed and protecting the future. Do not miss this. God is not merely fixing what broke. He is rebuilding the belief system that carried you through life. He is touching the thoughts you formed when people left. He is touching the conclusions you made when prayers seemed delayed. He is touching the private vows you made after disappointment. I will never need anyone again. I will never trust fully again. I will always have to take care of myself. If I do not control it, it will fall apart. If I am not useful, I will not be loved. Those are not just thoughts. Those became beams. Those became supports. Those became hidden structures under your decisions. And now God is saying, I cannot build your future on that. I cannot build your marriage on abandonment fear. I cannot build your ministry on rejection wounds. I cannot build your business on scarcity panic. I cannot build your obedience on terror. I cannot build your confidence on applause. I cannot build your peace on everything going your way. I cannot build your calling on a version of you that still believes, my love must be earned. That is why He is not only changing what happened around you, He is changing what happened inside you because of what happened around you. He is rebuilding your interpretation. He is teaching your nervous system that His silence is not hatred. He is teaching your heart that a closed door is not proof you are unwanted. He is teaching your mind that waiting is not abandonment. He is teaching your spirit that correction is not rejection. He is teaching you that when His hands are hidden, His heart is still holy. So let the construction have its work. Let God lift what needs lifting. Let Him expose what needs exposing. Let Him dig where you wanted Him to decorate. Let Him strengthen what you wanted Him to skip. Because the foundation He is rebuilding now is going to carry something your old life could not have carried. And when it is finished, you will understand why He did not rush. You will understand why He closed what you begged Him to open. You will understand why He separated what you were trying to save. You will understand why the shaking had to go beneath the surface. This is not demolition. This is holy construction, and the builder has not abandoned the site. And the first foundation God is restoring is trust. Not your schedule, not your reputation, not the part everybody can see. Trust, because when the shaking started, something in you began to ask a question you were almost afraid to admit. Can God still be good when life is not gentle? Can God still be faithful when the answer is delayed? Can God still be near when the room feels empty? Can God still be leading when the road looks nothing like what you prayed for? Listen to me carefully, because this is where many people lose the meaning of the season. They do not lose God because God left. They lose sight of God because pain starts preaching louder than truth. Disappointment starts interpreting heaven. Delay starts translating God's heart. The wound starts writing the sermon. And suddenly, the same God you trusted when doors were opening becomes the God you question when doors start closing. The same God you praised when provision came easily becomes the God you doubt when you have to wait. The same God you testified about when people stayed becomes the God you accuse quietly when people walk away. And I am not saying that to shame you. Heaven is not intimidated by your questions. God is not offended because you cried. Why? He is not fragile. He is not standing over you angry because your voice trembled in the dark. He knew the shaking would touch places in you that still hurt. He knew trust would not feel simple when the thing you prayed for looked delayed, when the person you counted on became distant, when the money got tight, when the plan fell through, when your heart had to keep showing up while answers were still forming. But hear me, God will receive your questions, but He will not let your pain become the final interpreter of His character. He will sit with you in the honest ache, but He will not let the ache rename Him. He will let you cry, but He will not let your tears testify falsely against His goodness. He will let you say, I do not understand, but He will not let you build a theology that says, God is not good because I do not understand. That is the repair. That is the deep work. Trust is being rebuilt where disappointment tried to become doctrine. Because you trusted Him when the door opened quickly. You trusted Him when the prayer turned around fast. You trusted Him when the check came, when the call came, when the person apologized, when the doctor's report changed, when the opportunity arrived, when life made sense. But now He is teaching you a deeper trust, the kind that does not need every answer before it stops accusing Him, the kind that does not call Him absent just because His hands are working under the floorboards, the kind that can say, I cannot see what you are doing, but I refuse to believe you have become cruel. That is not denial. Do not let anyone make you think trust means pretending it does not hurt. Trust does not mean you smile while your heart is bleeding. Trust does not mean you call confusion clarity. Trust does not mean you act like loss did not matter, or betrayal did not cut, or waiting did not stretch you. Trust means pain does not get the throne. Trust means fear does not get the final word. Trust means you stop using the shaking as proof that God disappeared. Jacob met God in a lonely place before he received a new name. Do not miss that. He did not meet Him in comfort first. He met Him in the night. He met Him in uncertainty. He met Him when he was between where he had been and where he was going. And that wrestling was not God leaving him. That wrestling was God touching him so deeply that he could not walk the same afterward. One encounter in the dark changed the name he carried into the future. Joseph had seasons that looked delayed, hidden, forgotten, and unfair. The pit did not look like purpose. The prison did not look like promise. The waiting did not look like leadership. But God was working under the floorboards. God was forming wisdom where Joseph wanted rescue. God was building capacity where Joseph wanted vindication. And when the time came, the delay was not wasted. The hidden years had been preparing him to carry weight he could not have carried as the younger version of himself. And Jesus Himself went into the wilderness after the Father had already called Him beloved. The wilderness did not erase His sonship, it revealed it under pressure. The hunger did not mean the Father had withdrawn love. The temptation did not mean heaven had changed its mind. The lonely place became the proving ground where identity stood, without applause, without comfort, without a crowd clapping around Him. So do not let the wilderness convince you that sonship has been canceled. Pressure does not cancel what God spoke over you. It reveals whether you believe it when circumstances stop agreeing. That is what is happening in you. God is rebuilding trust that can survive silence. Trust that can stand when people misunderstand. Trust that can breathe when provision has not arrived yet. Trust that can worship before the evidence changes. Trust that can obey without needing every detail explained. Trust that can say, God, I do not like this, but I will not lie about your heart. Because the deepest repair is not learning how to predict God's hands. The deepest repair is learning how to trust God's heart while His hands are still hidden. Some of you have been trying to trust outcomes more than God. You trusted Him as long as the relationship survived. You trusted Him as long as the job stayed steady. You trusted Him as long as the plan kept moving. You trusted Him as long as your timeline felt respected. But God loves you too much to let your peace depend on one visible support. He is not asking you to stop caring. He is asking you to stop making the visible thing the proof of His invisible faithfulness. So right now, before you ask Him to fix everything around you, let Him repair what broke between your heart and His goodness. Let Him touch the place that flinches when He gets quiet. Let Him heal the part of you that expects abandonment whenever you cannot see movement. Let Him restore the part that used to pray freely but now prays cautiously because you are afraid to hope again. Say it in your spirit if you can. God, I will not call you absent while you are rebuilding beneath me. I will not call you cruel because I am uncomfortable. I will not let disappointment become my prophet. I trust your heart while your hands are hidden. And once trust begins to rise again, you will not have to keep grabbing for everything that falls. Once you believe the builder is still present, you can stop trying to hold up what He is asking you to release, because the next part of restoration will require surrender, and some of what you are trying to catch is falling because God is no longer willing to support it. And I need to be blunt with you now. Some of you are exhausted because you have been trying to catch what God is letting fall. You have been running through your life like someone trying to keep every plate in the air, every opinion managed, every connection saved, every misunderstanding explained, every accusation answered, every version of yourself defended. You are tired, not because God has given you too much to carry, but because you picked up assignments heaven never put in your hands. Listen to me carefully. If God is letting it fall, stop breaking yourself trying to hold it up. If He has removed His breath from it, stop giving it artificial life with your anxiety. If He has stopped supporting it, stop crawling underneath it and calling that loyalty. Some things are falling because they were never built to carry the weight you placed on them. Some people were never assigned to be your foundation. Some roles were never assigned to be your identity. Some rooms were never assigned to be your proof. Some relationships were never assigned to be your home. Some expectations were never assigned to be your burden. And I know what fear says. Fear says, if I let it fall, I will have nothing. Fear says, if I stop explaining, they will believe the wrong story. Fear says, if I stop reaching, they will leave for good. Fear says, if I stop performing, nobody will value me. Fear says, if I stop proving myself, rejection wins. But fear is not your shepherd, panic is not your prophet, guilt is not the Holy Spirit, and exhaustion is not evidence that you are being faithful. Let the false responsibility fall. Let it fall. The burden to keep everybody emotionally comfortable, let it fall. The burden to manage what grown people choose to believe about you, let it fall. The burden to rescue a relationship that only survives when you betray yourself, let it fall. The burden to keep wearing the old label so people are not inconvenienced by your healing, let it fall. The performance, let it fall. The fear of being misunderstood, let it fall. The need to prove that you are not rejected, let it fall. The need to rebuild the same cracked structure just because silence feels unfamiliar, let it fall. Because some of you are not grieving what God removed. You are grieving the habit of holding it. You became so used to carrying the tension, carrying the explanation, carrying the emotional weight, carrying the blame, carrying the fear, that peace feels irresponsible, rest feels suspicious, surrender feels like failure. But surrender is not laziness. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is not you sitting back while your life burns. Surrender is obedience when God says, move your hands so I can rebuild what you keep trying to patch. You keep trying to patch what God is trying to replace. You keep trying to repaint what God is trying to remove. You keep trying to reattach what God is trying to sever. And every time He lets a piece fall, you run over and pick it back up because loneliness starts preaching. Panic starts preaching. Guilt starts preaching. That old desire to prove you are worth staying for starts preaching. But hear me, chosen one, you cannot rebuild the same cracked structure and call it restoration. You cannot drag an old support system into a new season and ask God to bless what He already exposed. This is where surrender becomes holy, not dramatic, not loud, holy. It is the quiet moment when you stop sending the message. It is the moment when you stop rehearsing the defense. It is the moment when you stop shrinking yourself to keep a seat at a table God is asking you to leave. It is the moment when you stop calling control wisdom and finally admit, Lord, I have been afraid that if I let go, you will not catch me. but he will. He may not catch the thing you are releasing, because he never promised to preserve everything that made you feel safe, but he will catch you. He will hold you while the false thing falls. He will steady you while the old structure comes down. He will teach you that you can survive being misunderstood, survive being released, survive being unseen, survive not being needed in the way you used to be needed. And when your hands are no longer full of broken beams, you will finally have room to receive what he is placing in them. So, move your hands. Stop catching the false responsibility. Stop catching the forced relationship. Stop catching the old label. Stop catching the performance. Stop catching the fear. Let God show you what remains when you are no longer holding up what he never asked you to carry. Because underneath all those false structures, there is a real you that has been buried beneath survival. And the next foundation God restores is not around you. It is in you. It is your name, your real name, the one heaven gave you before people started calling you by your wounds. And listen to me carefully now, because this is where the shaking goes from what you lost to who you are. God is not only restoring what happened around you, he is restoring the name you have been living under. Because some of you did not just lose a role. You lost the thing you were using to explain yourself. You did not just lose a relationship. You lost the mirror you kept looking into to decide whether you were lovable. You did not just lose approval. You lost the system that kept telling you who you were allowed to be. And that is why this part feels so deep. When God started shaking titles, roles, relationships, routines, and approval systems, you thought he was stripping you, but he was revealing you. He was showing you how much of your identity had been attached to things that could be moved. The title moved, and suddenly you did not know if you were still valuable. The relationship moved, and suddenly you did not know if you were still chosen. The applause moved, and suddenly you did not know if you were still anointed. The room moved, and suddenly you did not know if you still had a place. That is not just grief, that is identity being exposed. Because somewhere along the way, you started answering to names heaven never gave you. Too sensitive, too difficult, rejected, forgotten, unstable, behind, cursed, hard to love, always starting over. You heard those names so many times that they started sounding like truth. Maybe a wounded parent called you dramatic. Maybe an old relationship called you too much. Maybe an authority figure made you feel small. Maybe disappointment called you forgotten. Maybe failure called you cursed. Maybe delay called you behind. Maybe betrayal called you hard to love. Maybe every restart whispered, "This is all you will ever do. Begin again, break again, lose again." But I came to tell you by the Spirit of God, that was never your real name. It was a sticker. It was not your skin. Hear that again. It was a sticker. It was not your skin. People placed it on you in a season when you did not know how to remove it. Pain placed it on you when you were too tired to argue. Rejection placed it on you when your heart was open. Enemies placed it on you because they needed your confidence weakened. Old seasons placed it on you because survival has a way of naming people by what they endured. But just because something stuck to you does not mean it belongs to you. Just because you wore it for years does not mean heaven wrote it. Just because others recognized you by it does not mean God agreed with it. And peeling hurts. Let's tell the truth. When God starts removing a false label, it does not always feel like freedom at first. Sometimes it feels raw. Sometimes you do not recognize yourself without the survival mode. Sometimes you do not know how to walk into a room without apologizing for existing. Sometimes peace feels unfamiliar because chaos was the place where you learned how to function. Sometimes being loved without performing feels suspicious. Sometimes being quiet without being afraid feels strange. Sometimes you ask, who am I if I am not the strong one, the fixer, the rejected one, the abandoned one, the one who always has to prove they deserve to stay? That question is not failure. That question is the doorway, because God is not removing false names to leave you nameless. He is removing false names so you can hear the one he spoke before people got access to your wounds. Jacob knows something about this. One night in the dark, he wrestled with God, and the wrestling did not erase him. It revealed him. Do not miss that. God did not meet Jacob to destroy him. God met Jacob to rename him. Jacob had a history. Jacob had patterns. Jacob had dysfunction attached to his story. He had been called by what he did, by where he came from, by the nature of his striving. But after the wrestling, He did not leave that place, carrying only the old story. He left with a name that matched destiny instead of dysfunction. He walked differently, yes. He was touched deeply, yes. But he was not less himself. He was finally becoming the self heaven had been calling out of him all along. And that is what this shaking is doing in you. It is wrestling the false name off your life. It is confronting the version of you that learned to strive for love, beg for belonging, perform for acceptance, and shrink for safety. It is touching the place where you have been saying, "This is just who I am," when heaven has been saying, "No, that is who pain taught you to become." You are not your coping mechanism. You are not your rejection history. You are not the diagnosis of people who never knew how to love you well. You are not the season that embarrassed you. You are not the room that overlooked you. You are not the person who left. You are not the delay. You are not the restart. You are not hard to love. You were mishandled by people who did not have the capacity to love what God was forming in you. You are not behind. You have been hidden while heaven was rebuilding what could not be rushed. You are not cursed. You have been under construction. You are not unstable. You are being refounded. You are not too sensitive. You are discerning things you were once taught to ignore. You are not always starting over because you are failing. Sometimes God lets you begin again because the old foundation was not worthy of the future He has written over you. So let Him peel it off. Let Him remove the name that came from the wound. Let Him remove the name that came from the breakup. Let Him remove the name that came from the rejection letter, the family system, the religious wound, the childhood ache, the failure, the secret shame, the person who used your softness against you. Do not grab the label and press it back down just because it feels familiar. Familiar is not the same as true. Old is not the same as ordained. Loud is not the same as holy. God is restoring your real name. Beloved, chosen, called, held, sent, clean, worthy of care, capable of obedience, able to stand, able to receive, able to be loved without begging, able to belong without performing, able to walk into the next season without dragging the old accusation behind you. And once God restores identity, then He can restore relationships without letting you build your worth on human response. Because if you do not know your name, you will keep asking people to tell you who you are. You will make their silence a verdict. You will make their leaving a prophecy. You will make their approval a foundation. But when heaven gives you back your name, you can love people without worshiping their response. You can receive connection without making it your source. You can release people without losing yourself. That is why this foundation matters. Before God reorders your circle, He restores your center. Before He teaches you who belongs near you, He reminds you who you are without them. Because the next season cannot be carried by a false name. The promise cannot rest on rejection. The calling cannot be built on shame. The new relationships cannot become a rescue mission for an identity God is already healing. So, stand still in this part of the shaking. Let the old stickers come off. Let the raw places breathe. Let heaven speak louder than history. You are not who they called you. You are who God named you. And now the third foundation God restores is your circle. Not just who texts you. Not just who sits beside you. Not just who knows your history. Your circle. The people who are close enough to speak into you, pull on you, lean on you, influence you, drain you, sharpen you, cover you, celebrate you, or quietly keep you tied to a version of yourself God is trying to heal. Listen to me carefully. When God restores relationships, He does not always do it by bringing everybody back. Sometimes restoration looks like clarity. Sometimes restoration looks like distance. Sometimes restoration looks like silence where there used to be constant access. Sometimes restoration looks like God showing you who can stand on rebuilt ground with you and who only knew how to stand on the cracked foundation. Because some people were not attached to you. They were attached to the insecure version of you. They knew how to handle you when you needed approval. They knew how to benefit from the available version, the silent version, the overgiving version, the version that never said no, the version that apologized for having needs, the version that kept giving explanations so nobody would feel uncomfortable. They loved the version of you that abandoned yourself to keep the peace. They liked the version of you that made their emotions your assignment. They were comfortable with the version of you that carried the whole relationship while calling it loyalty. But now God is restoring your name. God is restoring your trust. God is teaching your hands to release what He is letting fall. And because of that, some relationships are going to tremble. Not because you hate people, not because you are bitter, not because you think you are better than anyone, but because healed ground does not support the same unhealthy traffic. A rebuilt foundation cannot keep hosting patterns that required you to stay broken. And they may not understand it. I need you to be ready for this. Some voices are going to say, "You changed." Some will say, "You became distant." Some will say, "You are too spiritual now." Some will say, "You are hard to reach." Some will say, "You forgot where you came from." Some will say, "You think you are better." And the old you will want to run back and explain. The old you will want to prove your heart. The old you will want to send 3 paragraphs, soften the boundary, shrink the obedience, and make everybody comfortable with what God is doing in you. But do not answer every voice. Hear me. Do not answer every voice. Not every accusation is a correction from heaven. Not every complaint is conviction. Not every person who dislikes your healing has authority to define your humility. Sometimes the accusation is not coming because you did something wrong. Sometimes it is coming because you stopped being available for what was wrong. That is why you need discernment in this season. You cannot confuse guilt with love. You cannot confuse history with covenant. You cannot confuse access with assignment. Some people were part of your past, but they are not built for the weight of your next season. Some people knew your wound, but they do not know your name. Some people knew how to touch your insecurity, but they do not know how to honor your healing. And if someone only knew how to benefit from the cracked foundation, do not be surprised when they cannot understand the restoration God is doing underneath. This does not mean you become cold. This does not mean you become proud. This does not mean you start cutting people off just because relationship requires patience. No, God is not teaching you hardness. He is teaching you holiness. He is teaching you how to love without losing yourself. He is teaching you how to forgive without rebuilding the same access. He is teaching you how to bless people without handing them the keys to rooms they damaged. He is teaching you that peace is not betrayal, and boundaries are not hatred, and distance is not always rejection. Sometimes distance is protection around what God is rebuilding. So let Him reorder the circle. Let Him expose what only survived because you were afraid to speak. Let Him remove what only stayed because you overgave. Let Him heal the part of you that thinks being chosen by God means being constantly available to people. Jesus loved deeply, but He did not give everyone the same access. He fed crowds, walked with disciples, and took only a few into certain places. Even love has order. Even calling has boundaries. Even compassion must obey the Father. And as God reorders your relationships, He is going to touch the fear underneath it. The fear that if they leave, you will be unsupported. The fear that if you stop overgiving, nobody will stay. The fear that if you release the wrong circle, provision, help, covering, opportunity, and companionship will disappear with them. But that is the next foundation He is coming for. Because after God restores your circle, He restores your security. He teaches you that your support does not come from panic. Your provision does not come from keeping unhealthy access open. Your future is not funded by fear. And the same God who can remove what depended on your brokenness can provide what honors your healing. And now God is coming for the 4th foundation. Security, provision without panic, not provision that makes you arrogant, not provision that makes you forget Him, not provision that becomes another idol with a cleaner name. No, God is rebuilding the place in you that starts shaking every time a number changes, every time a door closes, every time a deadline gets close, every time an opportunity shifts, every time the stream you were depending on stops flowing the way it used to flow. Because some of you have not just been praying, you have been checking the account, checking the email, checking the calendar, checking the application, checking the message thread, checking the bill, checking the due date, checking the thing again and again, like staring at it long enough might turn anxiety into authority. You have been replaying losses in your mind. You have been asking, how will God replace that? How will I recover from this? What happens if the job changes? What happens if the client leaves? What happens if the support stops? What happens if the door does not open in time? And listen to me carefully. God is not mocking that fear. Heaven is not dismissing the pressure you have been under. He knows what is due. He knows what shifted. He knows what left. He knows what the numbers say. He knows the private math you have been doing in your head while trying to look calm in front of everybody else. He knows the moments where you smiled in public and then went home and whispered, "Lord, I do not know how this is going to work." But I need you to hear this clearly. God is not rebuilding your security so money can become your savior. God is not rebuilding your security so a job can become your source. God is not rebuilding your security so an opportunity can become your oxygen. He is not taking you through all this restoration just to hand your peace over to another visible thing that can be shaken. He is teaching you how to receive provision without being ruled by panic. And this is important. He may not restore the same stream. He may not reopen the exact door you thought had to open. He may not send help through the person you expected. He may not rebuild provision in the shape your fear demanded. But he will not call you into restoration and then abandon you in lack. He will not shake false foundations, restore your trust, give you back your name, reorder your circle, and then leave you standing in a field with no covering. That is not the heart of the Father. That is not how heaven builds. Joseph could tell you about this. Joseph went from a pit to a prison before he ever saw a palace. And if you looked at his life in the middle, you might have called it delay. You might have called it loss. You might have said, "Where is the promise now?" But prison was not the cancellation of his calling. Prison became preparation for stewardship. The hidden place trained his discernment. The confined place trained his character. The forgotten place trained his ability to handle responsibility without worshiping position. Because the assignment ahead of Joseph was not just about Joseph surviving. It was about feeding nations. Do you hear that? What looked like personal delay was actually training for a responsibility larger than personal survival. God was not only preparing him to be blessed, God was preparing him to become steady enough to manage blessing when other people were panicking. And that is what he is doing in you. He is restoring capacity, not just comfort. He is teaching you how to receive without clutching, how to steward without striving, how to plan without bowing to fear, how to work without making work your God, how to save without making savings your shield, how to stand in a season where provision is coming, but your peace is not allowed to wait until everything is visible. So let him heal the panic. Let him touch the part of you that thinks security only exists when you can see the whole path. Let him confront the old belief that says, "If I am not afraid, I am not being responsible." Fear is not responsibility. Panic is not wisdom. Sleeplessness is not stewardship. You can be diligent without being driven. You can be faithful without being frantic. You can pay attention without making the problem your altar. God is rebuilding your security from the foundation up, not so you never handle money, not so you never think about work, not so you pretend bills do not exist, but so your soul stops kneeling to visible outcomes, so your breath stops being controlled by temporary numbers, so your obedience is no longer hostage to what looks available. So when provision comes, you can receive it with clean hands. And when provision shifts, you do not collapse as if God shifted with it. Because when trust is being restored, identity is being restored, relationships are being reordered, and security is being rebuilt, you are finally ready to understand why the shaking was so intense. It was never just about getting you through a hard season. It was about making you able to carry what is coming next. Your calling has weight, and the old foundation could not carry it. And listen, this is where you have to stop calling the shaking an attack on your future. Some of what trembled was not fighting your calling. It was preparing your calling. Some of what cracked was not evidence that the promise was dying. It was evidence that the structure underneath you could not carry the weight of what God has already decided to place on your life. Because your next assignment is not light. Hear me. It may look quiet right now. It may look hidden right now. It may look like nothing is happening because nobody is clapping, nobody is calling, nobody is opening the door, nobody is seeing the private work God is doing in you. But heaven is not confused by hidden seasons. Heaven knows the weight of what is coming before people ever see the fruit of it. And God loves you too much to pour a heavy calling onto a cracked foundation. That is why Jesus talked about new wine and old wineskins. Not because the wine was bad, not because the new thing was not promised, not because the pouring was being denied, but because the container had to be able to expand. New wine needs a skin that can stretch. New responsibility needs a soul that has been made ready. New influence needs humility. New access needs boundaries. New blessing needs emotional steadiness. New authority needs obedience when nobody is applauding. New doors need discernment, because every open door is not a God door, and every loud opportunity is not your assignment. So when God started shaking you, He was not refusing to bless you. He was refusing to let the blessing break you. He was refusing to pour new weight into old capacity. He was refusing to let your gift take you into a room where your character could not keep you. He was refusing to let your compassion drag you back into bondage. He was refusing to let your desire to be needed become the thing that exhausts you again. He was refusing to let your calling be built on panic, false names, unhealthy circles, hidden mistrust, and a security system that collapses every time something changes. Do you understand what kind of love that is? It may not feel gentle while it is happening. It may feel like pressure. It may feel like silence. It may feel like delay. It may feel like loss. But that is not cruelty. That is construction with destiny in mind. God is not only asking, can you receive what I promised? He is asking, can you carry it without losing yourself? Can you steward it without worshiping it? Can you be trusted with influence and still stay low before me? Can you be misunderstood and still obey? Can you be blessed and still remain clean? Can you be sent and still remain surrendered? This is why your patience had to be expanded. Because the old you wanted everything immediately, not because you were selfish, but because waiting felt like abandonment. This is why your discernment had to be sharpened. Because the old you confused familiar with safe, loud with true, urgent with holy. This is why humility had to go deeper. Because the old foundation could not handle being corrected without hearing rejection. This is why boundaries had to be restored. Because the old you thought love meant unlimited access. This is why faith had to be rebuilt. Because God is bringing you into places where you will have to move before every detail is visible. This is why emotional steadiness had to be trained. Because the assignment ahead of you cannot be carried by a soul that is governed by every mood, every message, every delay, every opinion, every closed door. And I need you to hear this part. The place that hurt you is not wasted. The place that almost collapsed is not useless. The place where you cried, where you questioned, where you thought you were finished, where you felt embarrassed by how deeply it shook you, God is going to turn that repaired place into authority. One day, you are going to speak life to somebody standing in the same rubble you survived. One day, someone is going to sit across from you with tears in their eyes. And you will not speak from theory. You will speak from a scar that no longer controls you. You will say, I know what this looks like. I know what it feels like when the foundation trembles. I know what it feels like when trust breaks, when identity gets buried, when relationships shift, when provision feels uncertain. But I also know the God who rebuilds. That is ministry, not a platform first, not a microphone first, not a title first. Ministry begins when the repaired place in you becomes bread for somebody else. Joseph did not just survive the prison so he could have a better story. He survived because nations were going to need food. Jacob did not just limp away with a new name so he could feel personally affirmed. He became Israel. There was weight connected to the wrestling. There was future connected to the wound. There was calling connected to the place where God touched him. And there is calling connected to the place where God is touching you. But do not rush the rebuild. I know you want to be done with this part. I know you want to say, Lord, I learned it. Lord, I understand. Lord, can we move now? I know you want the visible proof, the open door, the restored rhythm, the public confirmation, the moment where everything finally makes sense. But a foundation poured too quickly may look finished and still not be ready to carry weight. Concrete needs time to cure. Roots need time to go deep. Character needs time to settle. Trust needs time to become more than a sentence you say when you are feeling strong. Do not despise the slow work of God. Do not call it delay when heaven calls it depth. Do not call it punishment when heaven calls it preparation. Do not call it being hidden when heaven calls it being strengthened. If God lets you move too soon, the thing you prayed for could crush the part of you He is trying to heal. So let Him finish the foundation. Let Him strengthen the place that used to shake every time someone left. Let Him strengthen the place that used to panic every time money shifted. Let Him strengthen the place that used to perform every time approval went silent. Let Him strengthen the place that used to reach back for what He was removing. Because your calling is too weighty for the old structure. Your next season needs a steadier you. Your future needs a healed yes. Your assignment needs a heart that trusts God when His hands are hidden. Your influence needs a name that came from heaven, not from wounds. Your relationships need order. Your provision needs peace. Your obedience needs roots. And now that you can see it, you cannot keep hiding what has been trembling. You cannot keep pretending it was nothing. You cannot keep smiling over the crack and calling that faith. Faith is not denial. Faith is agreement with God in the place that needs restoration. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to name it, not to shame you, not to expose you, not to make your pain a spectacle, but because the moment you name the foundation that trembled, you stop letting fear speak for it in secret. You bring it into the light. You give it back to heaven, and you agree with the God who is rebuilding you from the foundation up. So now I want you to do something before this word moves any further. Do not just listen and disappear. Do not just nod and say, "That was for me," and then carry the same hidden trembling back into silence. Go down to the comments and name the foundation God is restoring in you. Name it. Do not be vague. If it is trust, write trust. If it is identity, write identity. If it is family, write family. If it is finances, write finances. If it is peace, write peace. If it is calling, write calling. If it is obedience, write obedience. If it is faith, write faith. If it is something else, name that too. But do not let shame keep it hidden one more day. Do not let fear keep speaking in a room where faith is supposed to testify. And then I want you to write this declaration: God is restoring my foundation. Put it in the comments like you mean it. Put it there as a witness. Put it there as a line in the sand. Or write, I will stand again on what God rebuilds. Because you are not just typing words. You are agreeing with heaven over the place that almost collapsed. You are saying, this fear does not get the final word. This crack does not define me. This trembling is not my ending. God is rebuilding me from the foundation up. Listen to me. The enemy loves unnamed pain. He loves secret fear. He loves the places you are too embarrassed to bring into the light. Because as long as it stays hidden, he can whisper to you like you are the only one. He can tell you nobody else is struggling there. Nobody else is afraid there. Nobody else is grieving there. Nobody else has questioned God there. Nobody else has cried over that foundation in the dark. But the moment you name it, secrecy breaks. The moment you name it, shame loses oxygen. The moment you name it, what was hidden in fear gets handed back to heaven in faith. This is not about performing for people. This is not about making your pain a display. This is not about begging strangers to validate what God already sees. No, this is about agreement. This is about witness. This is about refusing to let the place God is restoring remain buried under pride, denial, or embarrassment. Some of you have been saying, I am fine, while your trust was trembling. I am fine, while your family foundation was shaking. I am fine, while your finances were keeping you awake at night. I am fine, while your calling felt buried, your peace felt gone, your obedience felt costly, and your faith felt tired. But today, do not say, I am fine, if what you really mean is, Lord, I need you to rebuild this. Say that, name that, bring that to heaven. And if you are in the middle of the shaking right now, leave a prayer request, not a polished sentence, not a religious performance. Just tell us the area where you need prayer. Say, pray for my family. Say, pray for my trust. Say, pray for provision. Say, pray for my mind. Say, pray for my obedience. Say, pray for my calling, because this community is not here to watch you collapse. We are here to stand as witnesses while God rebuilds. And I want you to do one more thing. After you write your comment, read a few other comments. Do not just drop your pain and leave. Look for somebody who sounds like they are standing where you have stood. Look for somebody whose foundation is trembling in a place you understand. And pray a short prayer over them, just a sentence. Lord, restore their trust. Father, rebuild their peace. God, strengthen their family. Heaven, cover their provision. Your words might be the confirmation someone needed to keep breathing tonight. Your prayer might remind another chosen one, I am not the only one. I am not losing my mind. God is rebuilding more than just me. Because when chosen ones begin to tell the truth, isolation breaks. When the people of God stop hiding their trembling, the comment section becomes more than engagement. It becomes witness. It becomes altar. It becomes a place where fear gets interrupted by agreement, and shame gets answered by prayer. So write it now. God is restoring my foundation. Or, I will stand again on what God rebuilds. Name the foundation. Leave the prayer request if you need one. Pray over someone else if you have strength. And do it with a sober heart, because this message cannot stay in understanding only. It has to move into agreement. Restoration is not only explained, restoration is received. And now, we are going to pray over the place that almost collapsed. So right now, before I pray, I want you to get still. Put one hand over your heart if you can. If you are driving, keep your hands where they need to be, but let your spirit get still. If you are in your room, in your kitchen, sitting on the edge of your bed, standing in the hallway with tears in your eyes, breathe. Do not rehearse the worst-case outcome while this prayer is being spoken over you. Do not keep calculating the collapse. Do not keep replaying the conversation, the bill, the diagnosis, the silence, the door that closed, the person who left, the part of your life that shook so hard you wondered if you would ever feel steady again. For these next moments, stop arguing with fear. Let heaven speak over the place that almost collapsed. Father, in the name of Jesus, I bring this chosen one before you. I bring the trembling place. I bring the place they tried to hide. I bring the place they kept managing, carrying, explaining, defending, and crying over in secret. I bring the foundation that shook beneath their feet, and I thank you that the shaking did not mean you abandoned them. I thank you that what felt like collapse was not the end of their story. I thank you that you are not standing far away from the rubble. You are close. You are near. You are rebuilding what fear thought was finished. Lord, I pray first over trust. Every lie that told them you were cruel, break it now. Every lie that told them you were late, break it now. Every lie that told them you were absent, unconcerned, angry, silent, because you stopped loving them. Break it by the truth of your restoring love. Let the heart of the Father become louder than the voice of disappointment. Let your goodness become stronger than the memory of delay. Let them trust your heart even while your hands are still hidden. Let them know you are not taking from them to destroy them. You are removing what cannot carry the weight of where you are taking them. And I pray over identity. In the name of Jesus, let false labels fall. Let the name failure fall. Let the name rejected fall. Let the name too much fall. Let the name not enough fall. Let the name abandoned, overlooked, broken, forgotten, disqualified, and ashamed fall off their spirit now. It was never their skin. It was a sticker pane placed on them. It was a label people gave them. It was a sentence spoken by a wound. But heaven has another name. Let the name you wrote over them rise again. Let son rise. Let daughter rise. Let chosen rise. Let restored rise. Let beloved rise. Let called rise. Let clean rise. Let the name God gave them become stronger than the name pain gave them. Father, I pray over their relationships. Restore what is meant to return. Heal what can be healed. Reconcile what carries your breath, your order, your timing, and your peace. But Lord, also give them courage to release what cannot come forward. Give them courage to stop chasing what you are no longer supporting. Give them courage to bless people without handing them access to the repaired place. Remove unhealthy ties. Break agreement with manipulation, guilt, fear, and emotional bondage. Send people who can honor the healed version of them. Send people who do not need them broken in order to feel powerful. Send covenant, send covering, send wise voices, send clean love. And Lord, I pray over provision. Provide without panic, provide without torment. Provide without them losing sleep, losing peace, losing breath, and losing themselves, trying to make everything happen in their own strength. Open the right door, close the wrong one, send the resource, send the wisdom, send the opportunity, send the instruction, put their feet on stable ground, teach them to plan without fear, work without striving, receive without clutching, and wait without collapsing. Let their security be rebuilt in you, not in a number, not in a person, not in a job, not in a stream, not in a temporary outcome that can change overnight. And now, Father, I pray over calling. The shaking will not bury them. The pressure will not define them. The delay will not disqualify them. The wound will not have the final word. What almost collapsed will not become their grave. It will become testimony. It will become wisdom. It will become authority. It will become bread for somebody else who is still standing in the place they survived. Rebuild the foundation strong enough to carry the next assignment. Give them roots deep enough for the next wind. Give them humility for the next door. Give them discernment for the next opportunity. Give them obedience for the next instruction. Give them a yes that is healed, steady, and surrendered. I declare over you now, chosen one, you will not come out of this empty. You will not come out nameless. You will not come out with your foundation destroyed. You will come out restored. You will come out steadier. You will come out with clearer eyes, cleaner hands, deeper roots, and a heart that knows the difference between what God is rebuilding and what fear is trying to resurrect. The place that almost collapsed is being touched by heaven right now. The crack is not the conclusion. The trembling is not the verdict. God is rebuilding you from underneath. Now say this with me, and do not whisper it like you are still negotiating with fear. Say it from the place that needs to believe again. I am not being destroyed. I am being restored. God is rebuilding my foundation, and I will stand again. Now, do not rush away from this moment. Do not let the video end and immediately run back into the noise, the scrolling, the messages, the pressure, the same fear that was trying to interpret your shaking before heaven spoke. Let this word settle. Let it get beneath your thoughts. Let it reach the place that almost collapsed, and remind it, God has not left me here. God is rebuilding me from the foundation up. And if this word met you in the exact place you have been trembling, like this video as an act of agreement, not for a platform, not for numbers, as a witness, as a small outward sign that says, I believe God restores what life shook. Share this with someone who has been trying to look strong while their foundation has been trembling in silence. Send it to the person who needs language for what God is doing underneath what everybody else can see. And subscribe, because in rebuilding seasons, you need words that strengthen your faith while the work is still hidden. You need reminders when the concrete is still curing, when the roots are still going deep, when the visible proof has not caught up with the invisible construction. And before you go, write it one more time in the comments. God is restoring my foundation. If you need prayer, leave the specific area: trust, identity, family, provision, calling, peace, obedience. Name it and give it back to heaven. You sat down because the shaking looked frightening, but now, chosen one, you can stand up with a witness. This is not collapse. This is restoration. God is rebuilding you, and you will stand again.